Alrighty, g'day everybody, it's the Doga! It's time for the first of a new series on the beat, a good doggy YouTube channel that's AC/DC related. So, now it's time to review all the albums that the band have officially released, completely ignoring the international back catalogue from 76 to 79 or 78 or whenever it was in 1984. So, right from the very beginning, we have High Voltage, released on the 17th of February 1975. It, of course, contains 8 tracks and roughly runs to about 40 minutes in length or so, I believe. The lineup that recorded this album consisted of Angus Young and Malcolm Young on guitars, Bon Scott on lead vocals, and the bass and drum parts weren't quite finalised yet, so Malcolm and Angus's older brother George does most of the bass work, as well as their live bassist at the time, Rob Bailey. And some of the songs were recorded with an Italian drummer named Tony Carenti, who was with a band called Jackie Christian and Flight. And he recorded the majority of the drums for this album, and the band's live drummer at the time, Peter Clack, also recorded drums for one track on this album. Anyway, starting from the beginning, the album opens up with a cover of the 1935 Joe Williams blues hit Baby Please Don't Go, which is recorded at a much faster tempo than any other version that had come before it. I mean, the song was originally meant to be a slow, bluesy sort of number, but AC/DC were responsible for turning it into a super fast rock and roll number, perhaps inspired by the version recorded by them in the early 1960s. Anyway, Baby Please Don't Go was a sort of regular in AC/DC set lists up until at least 1977, with one last performance in 1979, I believe. And it also was performed in early 1974 during the Dave Evans era. A recording from the Hendon Court Hotel exists, with Malcolm singing the lead vocals on it for some reason. Anyway, next song on the album is She's Got Balls, which is the first of the originals on this album, credited to young Scott, of course. This was the song that Bon had written for his then wife at the time, Irene, who has gone on record to say on at least a couple of occasions that she does not like the song. And I don't blame her, to be honest. It is a bit on the cheesy side, but it's definitely got some good, if somewhat hilarious lyrics, which is typical of Bon even at that particular point in his career. And it's got a good guitar riff as well. Definitely one of the better songs that would remain in the band's... It would... Between 74 and probably near the end of 75, it was used as the set opener before it was eventually replaced with Livewire. And it would be the second song in the set list as a result for most of that time. Following that is Little Lover, which originally started life as Front Row Fantasies, according to what I remember reading. Something that Malcolm had been playing around with since he was a teenager, but subsequently changed it so as to protect the not-so-innocent, apparently. Apparently, Bon had also written the lyrics for this one after Angus, the littlest lover I know. At least that's what I remember reading somewhere. And of course, this song contains a reference to a certain glam rock singer who has notoriously been known for doing some very inappropriate things that will not be discussed here on YouTube. Thank you very much. We'll not talk about that particular person right now. Anyway, that's one of the slower songs on the album. Side 1 closes out with a little slow, medium tempo rocker called Stick Around. This one was not released internationally until 2009, at least not on an official basis. The album side does close out with that sort of bit about what Bon's love life was at the time and how he was, well, don't want to get into too many details again. Okay, either way, one of the better songs in my opinion off the album. Side 2 opens with another early Angus and Malcolm song called Soul Stripper. This one's the longest song on the album. It's roughly about 6.5 minutes, depending on what version of the song you have, including a bit of extra silence. This is mainly based on some of the CDs. This one features one of the rare occasions in which Angus and Malcolm both play lead guitar on during the middle portion of the song before the final chorus. And pretty much all of the early Australian releases of High Voltage usually give the credit to young Scott, but this, I believe, is not true. I believe this was just a composition by Malcolm and Angus themselves. And this one was also an early one in the early set lists as well. Next one is You Ain't Got a Hold on Me. This one seems to be a bit of an oddity, this one. Features Malcolm playing the lead break in the middle, one of the rare occasions that he does. And to be honest, probably not one of my favourites on the album, but it's definitely a lot better than the song to follow. Got some interesting lyrics here and there that are a little cheeky, but it's still a precursor to what was to come. And then, of course, probably considered by many AC/DC fans to be their least favourite song, the third song on side 2 of the album is, of course, Love Song. The only AC/DC ballad in the entire back catalogue. Starts off with probably the only appearance of a piano on the band's back catalogue as well. I believe this could be just Vander and Young doing the first part of the intro, and then the second half you got that little riff that Angus does. And for some strange reason, I'd like to know who it was. Love Song was for some reason chosen as the band's single off the album, with Baby Please Don't Go as the flip side. Nonetheless, radio decided to completely ignore the much softer sound of Love Song and instead chose to play Baby Please Don't Go, which in hindsight was actually the right choice. I'd like to know which higher up at Albert's at the time decided that Love Song would have been the A side, and as far as I'm concerned, that should have been the B side. All in all, it's not really a bad song, but it just does not fit in with any of what was to come many years from that point. The album closes out with perhaps, I don't know, you could probably say it's a late 50s, early 60s boogie rocker type called Show Business, which basically Bond paints the story of what it's like in the music industry a little before It's a Long Way to the Top, but it definitely shows that this is definitely what you're going to be expecting, such as having to pay your dues, and when all your money's gone, you sing the blues, among other things. And Show Business would also be another song that would also feature Malcolm on lead guitar as well as Angus, and would be in set lists mainly during late 74 to 75 before it was eventually squeezed out once more. Originals from what was to come, such as from TNT, would be added to set lists at a later point. All in all, this definitely isn't too bad a debut album, especially for a band that were in the process of trying to go in the opposite direction of glam rock that was hugely popular here in Australia during that particular time, and eventually they would completely move away from that sound altogether and go for a more harder, bluesier, grittier sound. That pretty much, this album laid the foundation for what was to eventually come in AC/DC's future. All in all, I would probably say it could probably go for about a 7 or 8 out of 10 as one of the best debut albums of all time, but that's just my opinion, and your opinions are, of course, welcome in the comments down below. So, that brings us to the end of the first installment of the series. Be sure to like and comment down below, and if you're new to the channel, be sure to subscribe. But until next time, this is the Doga saying have a wonderful day. Happy Halloween, everybody, because it is here today. And we shall see you again.